Hey everybody, it's Neil again from Heart of Texas Armory, and today I got another watch video for you guys. Today I'm reviewing the brand new Phoibos Great Wall, and this is one of the best built watches I've ever seen for under $1,000. So join me today and find out my complete thoughts on this really cool and nicely spec'd out dive watch from Phoibos. And taking a look at the specs here of the Phoibos Great Wall, you'll probably notice by looking over the dimensions here that this is a chunky dive watch. So we have a case diameter here of 42 millimeters, which is fairly large, but it does wear a little smaller than it would seem because your lug-to-lug distance here from that point to this point here is 47.5. So a nice short lug-to-lug allows it to wear a little smaller than that 42 millimeter case diameter would indicate. Lug width here for your bracelets and bands, 22 millimeters. Case thickness is quite thick, 15 millimeters here, and that does include this double dome sapphire crystal. And the weight on this watch here on the metal bracelet you see in front of you is 185 grams. Now that's set up for my wrist size. On the website, Phoibos lists this watch at 200 grams, so that's with the extra links added in. The watch features a very nice 120 click unidirectional bezel. The action on this bezel is very precise, it's audible, there's no back play, so the bezel is excellent. The water resistance of the Great Wall is rated to 500 meters. We do have a helium escape valve here on the left-hand side of the watch. So this is an actual scuba diving watch. You could actually take this saturation diving if you wanted to. So very impressive specs there for the water resistance. We do have a double dome sapphire crystal here with a few layers of AR coating applied to the underside. Very impressive. I'm a big fan of double dome sapphire because one, it's scratch resistant, and the double dome allows you to use this underwater and it's still visible pretty much at any angle without as much distortion. So very impressive crystal on this watch. The movement here is a high beat Swiss ETA movement. The movement is a 2824-2, so a very nice, reliable, and accurate Swiss movement here. So well done on Phoibos upgrading the movement in this watch to a Swiss ETA. And the watch does feature Grade 1 Superluminova C3, which is one of the best looms on the market, and the loom on this particular watch is spectacular, as you can see. Very, very bright, so Phoibos did an excellent job applying the loom to this watch with some of the best loom currently available. And of course, the loom lasts throughout the night, and this here is probably the brightest loom I have ever seen on a watch to date, so very impressive loom on this Phoibos Great Wall. The Great Wall is priced at $500 at the Phoibos website, which is a bit high in my opinion, but when you consider the quality of this watch and the specs that are inside this watch, it is surprising but understandable. So the new Phoibos Great Wall is obviously a unique and interesting design here, and I do commend Phoibos for going out of the comfort zone and coming out with something truly unique here from a Microbrand. But I do feel that this design, the aesthetics here are going to be quite polarizing. For me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of how this particular watch looks, but I cannot argue with the execution of it. It is pretty much one of the nicest design watches I have ever seen. The machining quality here, the specs, the build quality, all that is excellent, but I think that the design here is certainly polarizing, and you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. So the owners of Phoibos watches, Ethan and Emily, are from China, so it's pretty apparent that they love their country, particularly when they come out with a watch like this and name it the Great Wall, honoring the really cool wonder of the world, the Great Wall, which is in China, of course. And it's pretty cool how they pulled some design aspects from the wall and put them into this particular watch. So the dial uses a 3D brick pattern here on the dial, which is quite unique and interesting. I don't know if I'm actually a fan of that particular brick pattern, but I have to admit that, sticking with the Great Wall theme, it makes sense. But on a dive watch, maybe it doesn't make sense. But the execution of it is pretty cool here. I've never seen anything like this on a watch dial, so if anything at all, it is interesting. And we do have some unique hour markings here with this watch. We do have the shield emblems here at the 12, 3, 6, and 9. They are a bit large in my opinion and kind of dominate the dial, but I will admit that they do look good, and of course being that large and with the high quality loom that's in here, it contributes to the impressive loom that this watch has. And we do have a date window here at the 6 o'clock position, and you can see that it uses a circular cutout. It works just fine. It's easy to read, although I will admit it is a tad too small in my opinion. I would have preferred it to be just a bit larger. The handset is well done on this particular watch. You can see the seconds hand is a black syringe that reaches all the way out to the chapter ring, which is a nice contrast against the gray dial. The hour and minute hand are also well done, the minute hand being in orange and the hour in black. Wrapping up the dial here, we do have the Phoibos logo at the 12 o'clock, which is a tad large, but it does look nice. I'm a fan of the Phoibos logo. And below that, we do have 2 lines of text, which is nice that they didn't go overboard on that. 500 meters for the water resistance and automatic. The bezel here is also a nod to the actual Great Wall. You can see the design of this with those teeth right here, looking like the tops of a castle wall, a parapet. Really cool that they tied that into the bezel. And the best thing about that is it actually adds an amazing amount of grip to the bezel. You're able to operate this bezel in pretty much any position, so really good grip, and it looks cool as well. Another nice touch that Phoibos did with this bezel is that they put a sapphire crystal over the top of the aluminum insert. So basically you get a domed kind of sapphire ring over the top of that bezel insert, which adds to the look of the watch and also to the scratch resistance. Being a dive watch, the Phoibos Great Wall uses a very nice brush finish throughout the entire watch, from the top of the case, side of the case, to the case back, and including the bracelet. Everything is brushed, so that is a nice touch, as it's going to help hide scratches and dings you might pick up through normal use. You've probably noticed that this case also is quite unique. It has a lot of different angles and lines cut into it, so it's impressive that Phoibos went the extra mile here with the Great Wall, giving this watch case extra machine time in the CNC to come out with something that is definitely unique and looks cool. Phoibos also went the extra mile with this particular case back. You can see it is a screw down case back being a dive watch, but what's really neat is the deep engraving here. So you can see the Great Wall there on the case back. Looks really nice, although I wish they would have had the brick pattern on that particular engraving, but even without that it does look nice. And they also deeply engraved the information and specs about the watch around the perimeter, which also looks really nice. Another nice touch is the actual crown here. This is a large oversized crown that's protected by these really robust crown guards, but the engraving that they did, the embossing on this particular crown, is quite nice. You can see it is the Phoibos logo. Looks really cool, and in fact that's probably one of the coolest and nicest crown engravings that I've ever seen on a watch, so very nice job from Phoibos on that. The bracelet that is included with the Phoibos Great Wall is also quite nice. It's comfortable on the wrist and the quality is surprisingly good. This is a unique design that they made specifically for this particular watch. Some other nice touches are the ratcheting system here in the clasp, and of course the clasp is all machined. It is a bit bulky. I wish it would have been a little more streamlined, but it does work quite nice. They do also use hex head screws here for the pins, which is a nice touch, and overall the bracelet is quite comfortable. Also included with this watch is a rubber diving strap, so nice touch that they include that as well. Would be a good option if you want to lighten this watch up a little bit, because that bracelet is quite robust, but I actually prefer it on the bracelet and that's how I'm wearing it. So some of the things I really like about the Phoibos Great Wall is just the overall build quality here. I think this is one of the nicest watches I have ever looked at for under $1,000. The quality of the components and the machining quality here with this watch are simply top notch. The bezel design and the action here on the bezel is very nice as well. I really like that parapet design that they cut into the perimeter of the bezel. It really adds some really nice grip, and like I mentioned, the bezel action is really solid and robust. Also of note is the deeply engravings that they put in this particular watch. So the crown here with the Phoibos logo and the Great Wall design that they put in the case back there. Both of those are really well done. And the last thing I'll mention here is just the overall execution of the design as a whole. You know, Phoibos kind of went out on a limb here designing this. This is certainly something that's very unique out on the market. There's no other watch like this, so I commend them on coming out with a unique design. Also, the quality components they put into this watch, so using a ETA Swiss movement was a nice touch. The dome sapphire and the sapphire cover over the bezel insert, all of these things add up to a quality timepiece, so definitely the quality and the unique design and execution of it is certainly a positive. And for the negatives, there's unfortunately going to be quite a few of them, at least for me personally. The overall design and aesthetics of this watch never really hit a chord with me, so it's just not a design that I really like. Like I mentioned, the quality of this piece is top notch. It's just the aesthetics here are just kind of odd. You know, having a watch that has a motif to the Great Wall is fine, but putting that design onto a 500-meter Swiss movement dive watch just doesn't make sense to me. I think if Phoibos would have come out with a design similar to this and make it a normal 200-meter water resistance watch, shrink that case thickness down from 15 probably down to 12.5 or 13, and then lower the price, go with a Miyota movement or even a Seiko NH35, I think getting that price down to say between $250 and $350 would have made a lot more sense in my opinion. The dimensions are also a negative in my opinion, so the case thickness here, 15, to me it's a bit too thick, and also just the overall size and weight of this watch. I really would have preferred it if it would have been a 40 or 41 millimeter watch, case thickness below 13 millimeters, and then cut the weight down from around 200 grams down to say 150. That would have made a lot more sense to me. Another slight negative is that the bracelet does not taper down, so it starts here 22 millimeters at the lugs, and then at the clasp here stays right at that 22 millimeters. So I really would have preferred it if it would have tapered down a little bit. I think it would have added to the wearability of this watch and also look a little better. Another slight negative that I'll mention is with the sapphire crystal here over the top of the bezel insert. Now, this is a subjective opinion for me. I'm just not a fan of it. I would have preferred if they would have used a ceramic insert or even a aluminum insert. The sapphire crystal over the top of that insert just adds too much thickness to this watch. You can see it's like a domed effect there. I know some of you guys may like that, but for me personally, I'm just not a fan of it. And to wrap this review up of the Phoibos Great Wall, I have to admit this is a very impressive timepiece here, the execution of it overall and the quality. But like I mentioned, this is a very polarizing design here, so I think you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. So for me personally, I just never fell in love with this watch design. It's a bit too far out there for me. Now, I do give Phoibos credit for attempting this in the execution of it. The overall design here is certainly unique enough, but I think it's just something that's not going to sell very well for Phoibos because a lot of people are just going to be turned off by the design. It just doesn't make sense to them to put a Great Wall motif on a 500-meter dive watch. With that said, if you do like the design, I certainly do recommend this watch because the quality here is top-notch. You'd be getting a lot of watch for your money, even though $500 is quite steep, particularly from a Phoibos watch, but the quality, the specs inside here are certainly nice. So in the end here, the Phoibos Great Wall is a watch that I would not recommend unless you just like this aesthetic here, this Great Wall motif. But for me, I'm glad that Aaron over at the OFD channel loaned this into me because now I get to ship it back to him and I don't have to keep it because this watch is certainly not for me. I just don't like the design of it. The execution, yes. The quality, yes. But the design is something that I'm just not a fan of. But guys, if you have any questions or comments on this watch, please leave them down below in the comment section and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all take care.